Hi.
Hi.
Welcome to Why Are We Like This, a Heartstopper podcast. I'm Ashley, she, her.
And I'm Alyssa, she, they. And today we are here to talk about Season 2, Episode 5, Heat, with a very special guest. Today we have writer and co-host of Always and Forever, a One Tree Hill podcast.
Hi, I'm Jeremy, they, them.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited you're here.
Excited.
Ditto.
Okay, so before we get into this episode, I did want to talk about last episode. The ice cream situation happened and we got so caught up in like the meltiness of the situation that we didn't really talk about what that was like from Charlie's perspective. And we got an email from a listener that I just think they said it better than me. So I'm just going to read some of the email. They say the ice cream seemed to be something that, one, was a complete surprise to him and was outside of regular meal times. And two, was a food item that is socially deemed like fatty or guilty, or like any rendition of bad for you. And so his pause of not taking the ice cream, and we were like, it's melting, take the ice cream. But in his head, he's spiraling because he's lost like full control over this entire situation. And they also said, I love this part. They said the fact that Charlie prioritizes Nick's feelings, even during moments that are so tough for him, breaks me. He literally swallowed all the deafening urges to feel not so out of control just to make Nick smile, and then chooses to forego his one coping mechanism, even if momentarily, to make sure that Nick doesn't worry. And I was like, that is so true. And they said, if that's not proof that Charlie Spring is the strongest, bravest, sappiest, simpiest, and most thoughtful little gay nerd in the universe, I don't know what is. He will love all of himself someday, maybe just as much as Nick loves him. And so I just wanted to read some of that because they made some really good points that we kind of glossed over that I feel like are super important to point out and to acknowledge. So
They simultaneously made very good points and then wrapped it up with a description that made me cry.
Yes, absolutely. I'm a little desensitized to it because I have read it a bunch, but yes, I was super emotional.
Like
Super
one
emotional
glass of
reading it.
wine in, I'm not well. So
Oh yeah, also we're having some drinks during this recording, so bear with us. It might get wacky.
listen,
Hell yeah.
sometimes it's a Friday recording. Sometimes you just gotta.
Yeah.
All three of us have had days,
Yeah.
so we need it.
Yes. No, we don't need it. We deserve it.
There we go. Better said.
Better said. Yes. All right. So Season 2, Episode 5, Heat was, of course, written by Alice Oseman and directed by A. Ross Lynn. And this is the episode where rumors spread when Charlie wakes up with something on his neck. A group tour of the city's most famous sites reveals more than one major secret. Or, as I like to call it, the one with the love bite.
Aww.
Aw.
I love that they just say like something on his neck. Like,
Yeah,
come on.
like what the fuck? Like, it's not a vampire bite. What else is
Yeah.
there?
It's a new scarf. Rumors have spread.
Where did he get it? When I started this, like before the episode started, like the freaking Netflix logo came on and I was like, I'm not ready for this. I am not ready for this.
Yeah.
I was not.
It's an episode, that's for sure.
It
It really
is.
is.
I feel like it's balanced really well, though.
It is, yeah.
Before we get too far into it, Jeremy, do you want to let us know how you came across Heartstopper and like your overall feelings about it?
My overall feelings. Okay, how long do we have? Well, okay, so how I got into Heartstopper first off. I got into it relatively early after season 1 dropped. I want to say maybe 2 or 3 weeks after it came out. I'm not entirely sure.
Okay.
And ironically, it was because a bunch of my straight cis friends were recommended it to me. And I'm like, okay, great, sure. I'll add that to my list along with Rent, Love, Simon, and Brokeback Mountain. Like a bunch of other queer movies that straight people love, you know?
Yeah.
So I kind of just took it with a grain of salt, but eventually I decided to just sit down and watch it because it's such a quick binge, you know?
Mhm.
First season's 9 episodes, half hour each. I'm like, whatever, I can do this in an afternoon. And I feel like I was blown away immediately. Like, around episode 3, I feel like was when I knew that this show was different because, you know, I feel like just as a queer person, just like watching any sort of media, you kind of have your own preconceived notions about like how things are going to play out.
Mm-hmm.
And I immediately thought like, okay, these two boys, they're going to drag it out all season. They're not going to like, get together until the very end, or there's going to be some type of cliffhanger.
Mm-hmm.
And then they give us this gift right away, like 90 minutes in. And that's when I was hooked. That's how I knew this show was different. And I was just immediately blown away. And I had to keep watching. And I just love how the show like is not afraid to make us feel happy. There are a lot of heartbreaking moments, of course. There's a lot of drama, in particular in this episode, I would say. But overall, it really balances it out and like allows like us to feel some type of queer joy. And I really appreciate seeing that.
Yeah, and I think that people often complain that it's like too sugary sweet, but it's not even that there's not bad stuff going on. There is bad stuff happening. They're just focusing on the positive side of things, and they're always making sure that we end up in a safe space. And I think that that's beautiful and that people should stop complaining about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us feel joy. Come on.
No joy. There will be no joy.
We can only experience trauma as queer people.
Oh.
Yes.
Only pain. Everyone must die.
Yes.
But just like what you said, Ashley, though, like there is still trauma, and the show does still unpack deep issues, and I feel like there's a lot of like cathartic moments in here. In particular, this episode, I'm not going to get too far into it, but like the end of this episode had me bawling my eyes out when I first watched it. Just because, like, me at 32, like, ended up really related to it in many ways. And that's what we'll get into talking about for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Have you read the comics?
Oh, yeah.
I read, I think I read the first issue. I was reading it on, what's that site you sent me, Ashley?
Webtoon.
Yeah. I was reading it. I was enjoying it, but for whatever reason, I just didn't continue because I'm terrible.
You mean you didn't sit down and devour the entire, like, hundreds of pages of content in 24 hours?
Not yet, I am sorry to say, but it'll happen.
All right, are we ready to dive in?
Hell yeah.
So, is it me or has anyone else had Nobody Really Cares by Baby Queen stuck in their head all week?
It's a different song from this episode for me, but yeah.
That's fair.
I was super excited to have it start out with that.
Yes.
I was like, Baby Queen!
I swear that show, like going to see the Baby Queen show last year was like a core memory for me because screaming Nobody Really Cares at that show, like that song, because it had just come out like days before and it just
we like put it on a loop to learn all the words before we went to the concert.
And it was just so much fun, like screaming nobody, like the words Nobody Really Cares in like a room full of queers.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I love that song and it's like tied up with this memory of this show and it made me very happy.
Yeah, to have it in season 2.
It's really funny because, like, my only relationship to Baby Queen is just seeing, like, you, Ashley, post about them a lot. And I'm just like, okay, like, Ashley loves them. Like, great. I love this. And then, like, when I heard this song, I had to look it up. I'm like, oh, that's Baby Queen. Got it.
And season 1, it opens with Baby Queen, that Want Me song that's playing. Want me if you want me.
Okay.
And then a couple of other songs are in that one. And this is not in this episode, and we'll talk about it later, but the song that Nick is playing when Nick comes out on Instagram is called Colors of You. And she wrote that song after seeing season 1 from Nick's perspective. And then they used it for his, like, coming out on Instagram.
No way.
Yeah.
And then
And I cried.
She is the artist who is performing at the prom.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Baby Queen.
Interesting. Okay. I have a deeper relationship with Baby Queen than I initially thought, apparently.
Yeah. And there's a few Baby Queen songs in this season, too. I think this is the first one. And I was like, there's my girl!
Yeah. Can't believe it took us 5 episodes to get it, but
listen,
it was worth it.
the music in this season brings it. They live up to
Yeah.
what the expectations they set. So we're going to have to talk all about that in a different episode.
I do think it's super an interesting choice to choose for this scene since people will absolutely fucking care.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that was an intentional choice of, like, the juxtaposition of
Right.
nobody really cares and everybody cares.
But I think it's also just a really good message for the audience and for these characters as well, though.
Maybe not the part about crashing your dad's car and getting kicked out of bars. Maybe not that part.
Yeah, and whatever. Like, just let it go. Nobody cares. It's good.
Every time I hear that lyric, I'm like, I feel like your dad might care.
Yeah.
I feel like he might be a little upset if you crash his car.
I still think it's an empowering message overall, though.
Yes, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I also think this is a set because they said when they were in France that they visited a bunch of hotels and took pictures of the rooms so that they could recreate the hotel rooms. So I'm assuming that this is what they came up with.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. So do you know how I was going crazy about knowing that We Are Okay appears a second time? And I thought it had happened previously. It's in this episode. Like right away, and I'm like, God damn it, I knew it was there again.
I thought you said it wasn't when he was asleep with it on his face, though.
He was asleep with it on his face in the previous episode, and now he's asleep with it on his face again now.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
so he's passed out. We can't see Tao, but we're assuming that he's also passed out at this point, or is like waking up. And Nick is looking at his phone, and he's got 2 red texts that he has sent to his dad with no response because he's a piece of shit.
Mm-hmm.
And then Charlie messages him, come in the bathroom right now.
Can I say something real quick right here?
Yeah.
I love that these characters are using some type of messaging platform other than Instagram right here, because I find it very amusing that his dad's texting him and then, like, Charlie messages him through Instagram still for some reason.
I know. So that's actually my next note.
Great.
Is that we the internet have been like, why the fuck do these people use Instagram to text? And Alice made a comment. I can't remember if it was in an interview that I read or watched, but they were like, I understand that people are upset about the Instagram thing, so I'm gonna work on it. Like, so I'm assuming that season 3 they might exchange numbers and be texting, but they were like, I hear you. I hear you about the Instagram, okay?
Do they use Instagram in the comics?
No, they use Facebook Messenger because the comics are like are older.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so they fucking are on Facebook, which is a wild thing to like jump into today. It's like whoa, these 14-year-olds are Facebook messaging each other? That doesn't sound right.
Nick and Charlie fully Facebook stalk each other in the comics.
Oh, cool.
So Nick goes to the bathroom, and I love that Charlie is just standing there holding it, like covering it up, like it's like a wound that the bleeding needs to stop. Like, I think that Kit absolutely kills this acting.
It's so
I fully believe that he is like flustered and is confused and worried. Like he really gives me all of the emotions that he's trying to portray.
Mm-hmm.
I also love that Nick is so respectful, and he's like, "Oh God, did I do that? I am so sorry." And then, and then Charlie just has to reassure him, saying that, like, "No, like I liked it. I wanted you to do that."
Which parallels a conversation that they have on the Eiffel Tower, where Charlie is all like feeling bad and apologetic and worried because people are starting to speculate that it might be Nick, and then Nick is like, "You do realize that I did do it, right?" So they have these like twin moments where one of them is kind of like shame spiraling and the other one is like, no, it was
I was into that. Yeah.
I do think it was so funny that he is just like didn't even know that he could cause that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm like, that is such a 15-year-old thing. I'm just like, I didn't know that's how that happened.
Yeah, I didn't know how to do that, to be honest. Like, oh, I love that. And then we get a knock on the door. And I just have to say, this is such a bold move. Like, it makes absolutely sense that Tao does this, but he knocks and does not wait for an answer before he walks into this bathroom that he knows a couple is in there on the other side.
A lot of things could be happening right now, Tao.
Wait for the okay before you enter, my guy.
At least pause long enough to listen and make sure that there's nothing extremely untoward happening.
Exactly.
I mean, Tao has had some boundary issues in previous episodes, so it's not totally unsurprising.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes sense that he did it, but I'm just like, damn.
But he shouldn't.
You got to learn a lesson, and I would rather you learn it from listening to this podcast, Tao, than actually going in and like actually having to learn the lessons. And he's like, "How did you get that bruise on your neck?" And I'm just like, how does anyone get a bruise on their neck? Like,
it was my hair straightener, I swear. But Charlie and Nick's like shy, like speechless, like, what do we say? What do we do? And Tao's like eyes like freaking ping pong.
I love Mom Tao. He's like so upset. Mom Tao is my favorite Tao.
Which is the Tao we get throughout. Like, there's two Taos that we see, which is like hardcore crushing on El Tao and Mom Tao. And those are my two favorite Taos.
Yeah, for sure. I love, he's like, oh my God, I cannot believe it. The actual, and then Elle's knocking like stops him. But I'm like, what was he going to say? The actual audacity? Like, what is he about to, like, I want to hear the rest of this spiel that he's giving. But he's like, we will be having words. And like huffs and walks away. I was like, and William Gao plays this so well. His physical comedy, I know we talked about it in the last episode, like extensively, but it's so good.
Like this whole sequence, like this whole, like all of Tao's stuff in this hotel room. Amazing.
It's also good.
But also the look that he gives Nick as he's closing the door, like fucking like demon eyes.
He meant it when he said they will be having words.
Yeah.
Because probably in his eyes, he's like, you hurt my friends, perhaps. But it's like, no, Charlie consented to it. It is okay.
Yeah. Also, you're the one who went to the vending machine and left them in the room by themselves. You did this, Tao.
So this is the kind of stuff that when I was saying, like, because Tao... Okay, so Jeremy, just some context. In the comics, during the Paris trip, Tao doesn't know about Nick and Charlie yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big deal.
It's the whole thing. And so I was saying that the thing with Tao, like, picking the other bed and being like, I was doing you a favor, or I don't remember exactly what he said, that I was annoyed about in the last episode, it's because I feel like Tao knowing and Tao as a person, especially in this season, there could have been some really good opportunities for more jokes and stuff in this of like possibly sex repulsed Tao, like not being, like not wanting any of that to transpire
in his room
or anywhere that he needs to think about it, or like there's just a lot of other jokes that I feel like could have been made that would have been so much fun that I was like, come on, we couldn't do something like that. We had to do the same thing. That doesn't make as much sense in this context.
I do like that he is like, he's still protective of Charlie, but he's doing it in a positive way this season rather than the negative way that we got last season.
Oh yeah, definitely.
For sure.
But yeah, so this is basically what happens in the comic. They end up, Tao is like, you know, I'm taking this bed, and the other character's like, I'm taking this one. So they're not in the same bed, and then this whole thing happens. And what's Charlie's excuse? Did he say he fell in the shower?
I think so.
I think he says he fell in the shower, and that's how he got the bruise, because Tao doesn't know about Nick.
Oh.
This is so much better. This is perfect.
But then, yeah, and then they have to go with, like, everybody knows about it, and everybody's trying to find out who it is, but even Tao doesn't know, like, for sure who it was.
That's really interesting. I'm really wondering about the comics now, and like how much that changes the whole thing.
Read it.
I'm gonna get to it eventually. My first priority right now is reading Britney Spears' memoir. I am sorry, but then after that,
fair.
I may dive into Heartstopper.
Fair.
But yeah, so Elle had previously knocked on the door, so Tao goes to answer the door, and we now learn that it is Elle waiting there. And Tao is wearing his boxers and maybe some socks, nothing else. So he opens the door, realizes that it's Elle, and just like tries to cover his entire body with his 2 little noodle arms.
I thought that was so cute.
It's
So
hilarious.
good. And then he slams the door. He's like, we'll be there in a minute. And slams the door and turns and looks so panicked. And he's like, help me, please. It's so good.
And just the cut to the like tableau of Isaac, Charlie, and Nick like smiling and holding back the biggest laughs of their entire life. It's the greatest shot of the entire show. Everything else be damned, it's my favorite. I love it. It brings me so much joy. It is a bold claim because I can think of about 5 things that are also the greatest shot of the entire show. But
I was like, ooh, that's a statement right there.
We all know that I am prone to hyperbole. I am an English teacher. It's in my nature.
And then we get our title card.
I don't want it. I don't like it. I mean, I love it.
Yeah, it's very good, but it hurts.
The fucking heat wave, like, on the title. This was the episode that when the titles came out, I was like, nope. And I was right.
This is going completely over my head. What are we not liking?
Oh, no.
But because of the fainting.
Because of the fainting and just, like, a lot of the stuff that happens, like, emotionally, we're not ready for it.
Right, but we knew where this episode was going to fall because it was called Heat. They mention a couple of times that it's so hot, stay hydrated, and, like, all that stuff. And then he faints in the Louvre. And so we knew that was going to be this episode.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah. Again, this is the kind of blessing and curse of having read the comics, is you know what's coming, but you know what's coming.
And also you have no idea at the same time.
So was there anything in this episode that particularly, like, surprised you? Where you're like, oh, I didn't know that was actually coming.
I feel like the Tao stuff definitely, just in so far as we didn't know, because, you know, in the comics, Tao doesn't know. I wouldn't say it was a surprise, but it was very pleasant and enjoyable.
It was new.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I would say on the flip side, we also didn't really know what to expect from fucking Ben in this season either.
True. Yeah, because Ben is not in the comics at this point. Like, after season 1, like, after the comic arc that encapsulates season 1, he's gone.
He's gone.
Yeah. I'm still early in listening to the two in your podcast, but I do remember you saying that, like, this whole quote-unquote redemption arc that Ben goes on is not part of the comics, right?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because none of this, he wasn't here. So I feel like he has some big stuff in this episode, and that was all, like, a surprise in a negative way, because I don't want more Ben.
Like it. And, you know, we'll briefly touch on that later.
Okay. I do have some Ben feelings, so we can get into, but we'll get into that organically.
We get down to breakfast, and this is not how teenagers talk about hickeys. Have you ever met a teenager who says that that's so gross?
I mean, I think it's because they're being homophobic.
Okay, that makes sense. But, like, because I just thought of it as, like, no, hickeys, when I was in middle school and high school, hickeys were, like, medium funny, but some kids found them absolutely hilarious. And I didn't remember anyone thinking they were gross, but that does make sense that it's more of the homophobia.
Yeah, that's what I projected onto it.
I think this is like a parallel to them always saying that her and Tara are gross in season 1.
See, this is my problem. I spend my days around teenagers, and so I'm just, like, plugged into,
like, this is unrealistic.
This is not how teenagers act. But, like, hadn't factored that in.
So wait, before we even get any dialogue, it cuts down and we see this shot of the table and Imogen's at the end, and she looks fucking miserable. and I feel so bad for her. And, like, she just ended her relationship last night, as she fucking should have. And now the love bite situation is happening, and everybody's talking about it. And so, like, she's, like, forced to be, like, surrounded by this happy couple that she knows about when she's fucking miserable and dying inside. And I just want to hug her.
Yeah. Ugh.
I love Imogen.
So we see Imogen, we have the classmates being homophobic and talking about the hickey. And then Tao, after these random students who are talking about it pass, he announces rather loudly, I blame Nick entirely.
Which is like, we're going to find out later in this episode that you talking too loud has caused you some trouble in the past. And it's like, you're really just out here just throwing it out for everyone. But you know who doesn't care? Nick. Because without hesitation, he's like, that's fair. Because he's low-key like, yeah, I did that. Like, he's like, thank you very much.
It's a source of pride. Yeah.
I love, because Charlie is also like, can we please remember that I was also involved? And, like, to be fair, like, yes, you were there and you consented, but, like, it's Nick's fault. Like, Nick did the thing. Nick caused this. Unless you want to blame your capillaries for being too weak. But I don't know if you understand.
Not really fair. Not really fair this time to blame Nick. But now he knows. It happens again, then it was Nick's fault.
Although, I mean, I will say, I have been in situations where, like, people have been sucking on my neck, and I'm like, this is going to give me a hickey, and it's going to be very, very visible. I know it. And you know what? I'm not going to stop it because I am enjoying it a little bit too much. So,
totally fair.
Yeah, to your point, though, Charlie, I don't think recognize that fact that this would give him a hickey.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I have been in plenty of situations where I'm like, nope, I'm getting a hickey out of this.
I accept the risks, right? I almost just quoted the Vampire Diaries. I'm gonna refrain. Because Tao then is like, ugh, no need for the gory details. As if Charlie's presence is a gory detail.
Yeah.
Which again, Mom Tao is the best Tao.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so here's something that I noticed. Next, Harry walks by, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Oi, Charlie Spring, who gave you that hickey? Blah blah blah." But he's not even on the right fucking side to see the hickey. He's on the wrong side.
Oh, you know he heard it through the grapevine, and then. Like,
I know,
was like,
I
just like Charlie, and I want to be a dick about it because I'm Harry Green.
That is so funny.
Exactly.
And
but
also,
he plays it off like he's looking at it, and I'm like, you're on the wrong side, my guy. Like you fucked this up.
I didn't notice that, but also like that just tracks so well with our assessments of Harry and his behavior in season 1.
Yep.
Mm.
There's a full table shot after this when Harry like walks away, and you can see James in the background. Like he's at a different table, but he's perfectly centered, and he is just drinking this tea in. And I'm like, you're gonna regret that.
Well, guess who else is dead center of this shot, and I have some feelings about it. So number one, they like both like they react like Charlie like completely melts in on himself because of course he doesn't want to be perceived. And he is being perceived. And it is, for storytelling purposes, extremely well framed because smack in the middle of them, in the background, and it's like really well focused, we see Ben staring very intensely and kind of moping. And I can't stop thinking about the fact that, and I didn't have the time or the energy or the wherewithal to go back and actually like test this theory through every episode, but I feel like we see a lot of these reaction shots of Ben seeing and being in the background of Nick and Charlie's situations. And Ben's goal in this episode is to come between them. And in this shot, he is literally coming between them. And I have feelings about it. And I feel like this isn't the first time that we have framing like this, where his head or his body is literally in the background or somewhere in between the two of them in the framing. And it's really well done visual storytelling of like what is happening here. And it does a really good job of communicating Ben's motivations and Ben's kind of like inner monologue without having to say the quiet part out loud. Mm-hmm. And I really, from a filmmaking perspective, appreciate it. From like a me anti-Ben perspective, hate it. Thanks. Mm-hmm. Can we please yeet him off the Eiffel Tower? But alas, I do. Yeah. It's just, it's my job on this podcast as the ex-film student to bring shit up like that.
Yeah.
And so,
it is a good shot. But yeah, my note just says, and then they show us Ben, which like, ugh. And then I move on.
I mean, I think it's a very good threat for like a possibility, but as we know by the end of the season, that's not what happens whatsoever.
Right. But it's Ben's goal. Like, if we were to have this with Ben as the protagonist, which yuck, but his goal would be to separate Nick and Charlie so that he could have Charlie all to himself. So like, it's from that perspective that I feel like they do a good job of visually communicating Ben's motives without us having to spend too much time with Ben because he is not a character who we're rooting for.
Right.
And then Isaac, while this is happening, Isaac just goes, well, that's not ideal.
Yeah.
I noticed that too. Like,
it's not. You're correct. It's not ideal.
Good point, Isaac. Good.
Yeah. Thanks for that feedback. And Elle like reaches over and comforts him by squeezing his shoulder, which is like just a perfect Elle thing to do.
It's great. And, you know, it's a good thing that Tao doesn't get up and fight Harry, but I don't think that was outside the realm of possibility.
Again, they could fight again.
Yeah. I do wonder where the teachers were in this, because this is the kind of thing that I feel like Mr. Ajayi especially would try and intervene with.
But we have some notes that would disagree with that later on in this episode.
Oh.
This specific situation of like these people making these comments in such a public space, I just feel like it's something he wouldn't. He's rather I might be projecting my teacher feelings, but I feel like he's rather protective of Charlie. And so I'm like, with this particular situation, I feel like he would. But I also don't think that we saw them at breakfast.
But he is there later when it happens and he doesn't say a word.
It's true, yeah.
So I have notes and feelings about that, Mr. Ajayi.
I'm excited to hear these notes and feelings.
Welcome to our podcast.
I did not clock these. I mean, I was just so busy thirsting over Mr. Farouk when it was coming to the teachers.
Fair.
But
yeah.
We'll get into that
later. Yes, we will.
So Nick turns to Charlie and sees that he hasn't eaten and asks if he's not hungry. And of course, Charlie says he's not really hungry. So he packs him a croissant, which is so sweet. But it also shows us like how much he's thought about this and how much he's really worrying about it, that he's being proactive enough to pack something to have for him. But yeah, it's
See, I didn't think about that at all, because all I could think of in this moment, and also again later when he eats the croissant, is the comic panel of Charlie like eating the choking on the dried out croissant.
Yeah.
Like 4 hours later. All right, so yeah, we get on the bus. Charlie is like getting on, and Harry is like, something to be proud about, isn't it? Getting some action. And I just want to punch. And someone asks if it's true that James gave him the hickey, and then like the rationale is that he's the only other gay guy on the trip. And I'm like, he's the only other out
presumptuous
gay guy on the trip. Shut the fuck up. Also, bisexual people exist.
Oh yeah.
And but then there's other people like speculating like that there was this guy in reception with dark hair who it might have been, or there was someone in the gallery. And then we get Mom Tao again.
Wait, I love that when they bring up James, I want to point out like Charlie is totally taken aback. He's like, what? Like who, what? And I'm assuming they've probably never interacted.
Yeah. Well, no, we see him.
Last episode, but before this trip, though, like,
yeah, He's not, like, in their circle.
Exactly.
He's, like, tangentially, like, connected to Isaac, but not a member of the core group.
I think James just might be worried that this may be Isaac who could have given him the hickey. Given Charlie,
Yeah.
I should say.
Well, and I think, I mean, also definitely James doesn't want Isaac to think that it was
Exactly, yeah.
James.
Yeah, there's definitely layers here going on.
Yeah.
Like,
I don't think he really thinks about that it could be Isaac that gave Charlie the hickey until Charlie's like, no, he knows for sure it wasn't you. And then he's like, was it him? Like, how would he know for sure? Like,
yeah. Like, doesn't even, like, cross James's mind that it's, oh, Isaac is, like, one of your best friends. He would know if you have a boyfriend or someone that you're making out with on this trip. But yeah, Tao sits down and he's like a full-on, like, I mean, he's a twig, but he's like a bouncer. Like, he's got the energy of, like, a bodyguard. Like, he's ready to fight anyone who even tries to mess with Charlie. And I love it. And then he, like, tells people to, like, leave him alone.
yeah, and then it's none of your business because he's a fucking king.
Mm-hmm.
And then fucking Ben comes on and sits directly behind Charlie.
Of course.
Fucking kill me.
So can I read you my note here? So it says, Ben gets on, looks back and sees Imogen, sits by himself in the row behind Charlie. God, he makes me so fucking anxious. If this were a CW show, I'd be rooting for him to die.
I love that.
I felt that.
I mean, we are rooting for him to be thrown off the Eiffel Tower. So I would say in this universe, we're also...
Yeah, but, like, we know that that's not actually going to happen in this universe.
That's true.
But, like...
Right, fanfic.
There's probably some out there.
Oh, there definitely are. I was like, but I already have enough fanfics that I want to write that I don't have the time to write. Do not add to my list.
I mean, I will. I want you to throw Ben off of the Eiffel Tower, please.
Fight you. I will fight
Just
you.
Incorporate that storyline into one you already got in the...
There we go.
But not all of the ones that I have are AQs.
Yeah, you're like, Ben does not exist.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Precisely. But yeah, that's how I feel. Like, if this were the Vampire Diaries, if this were Gossip Girl, if this were Riverdale, boy, bye. Please cease living. All right, so we go to the Eiffel Tower, and we get Mr. Farouk's iconic "Quiet."
So sexy. Like, even I was writing notes during that part, and then, like, when he said quiet, I'm like, immediately attention. Like, yes, Daddy, I will be quiet.
Sounds like someone's hot for teacher.
Oh, I am. I am not making that. It's a secret.
Yeah, no, you're not the only one. We are. Ajayi is everyone's hot for teacher. Anyway, before we get into the reason that we're here at this park under the Eiffel Tower, I have some teacher notes. So number one, I really like Mr. Ajayi's shirt.
Yes.
It's just a fun pattern. And I also love the fact that he's wearing his pride flag pin, even though it completely blends into the shirt. The thing that annoys me about it is he has a perfectly good lanyard right there. And I'm like, dude, pin it to the lanyard, because that's what I do. Like, I have a pin that I got at the New York City GSA Summit last year that they gave to all of the adults. And it's a pin, and it says, "You are safe with me," and it has a rainbow on it. And it's super cute. And I pinned it to my lanyard with my, like, keys and my ID on it. So I'm like, dude, just pin it to your fucking lanyard. But then I started thinking, because also this lanyard seems way too plain for Mr. Ajayi. This is not his person. It's just like a pale blue. And I was like, wait a minute. Because I was like, the UK schools have weird rules, which we've discussed before. And I'm like, maybe like they have certain rules for the teachers about things like this, like lanyards and accessories and stuff, that they have to be within certain parameters. And maybe he's not able to have like a fun, colorful, artsy lanyard.
I also think that there's a good chance that these were issued for this trip, because Not only does he have one, but so does Mr. Farouk. And the other two fucking teachers are in this scene.
Yeah.
And I was like, how? How have I never seen them? And they also have lanyards. There are two more teachers. There are 4 teachers on this. We've made a big deal about how this is unrealistic. There's 2 teachers for all of these kids. There's 4
There are
teachers.
2 whole other teachers?
Okay, not for nothing.
Yes, from Higgs. So there's 2 female teachers that are also standing there with them, helping them with this process.
Oh.
It hit me when I saw them that I should have noticed at dinner. That's who they were sitting with, was the other 2 teachers. So when Imogen is like breaking up with Ben and it's splitting over to them watching the tea, those other 2 people there are the teachers, the other teachers. Duh.
Yeah.
Completely missed it.
Mm-hmm. So Mr. Farouk, I don't actually have notes on what Mr. Ajayi says about this, the actual assignment, because my only note, and this is in all caps, is, are we really here to practice our French skills, Nathan? Are we? Then why was this trip open to all language students? Charlie, and we know this canonically because we meet his Spanish teacher, and Julio points out that he's taking Spanish GCSE. Charlie takes Spanish. Also, in this conversation, Imogen and Sahar both mentioned they don't take French. Why are we assigning French shit to a group of students who do not all take French? And if that is the case, if you are going to say we're going to use this to learn some French, why then are these pre-assigned groups not pairing a French student with a non-French student? That's just basic fucking pedagogy.
Yes, that was my exact note almost to a T. But half of these kids don't even take French, and how are they supposed to have any idea how to read this or what to do? And it's not like you took the time to pair them up with French students that do know how to read this and what's going on. So, like, what the fuck is this trip? I mean, I guess they're likely not getting a grade on this, so this is probably just some requirement they had to fulfill. Like,
it's just stupid.
The teachers were probably just like, hey, we have to fulfill some type of educational requirement. Like, yeah, like, let's have them learn French. Oh, see, administration, we did something with them, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
As Ajayi was explaining this, my other thought was, what even is Eiffel Tower related vocabulary? Tower? Stairs? Because I couldn't fathom what this assignment would even be. Until we get a actual shot of it later, where I started trying to write some of it down.
Oh.
Yes. So when we get there, I'll discuss it.
Nice.
I don't want to, dwell on this too much, but I did just Google Eiffel Tower vocabulary, and there is an Eiffel Tower technical glossary.
Wow.
This is for engineering students, though, is it not? It's struts.
I'm not sure. So, there's words angle, which is a bar sectional iron or steel piece in the form of an L, factory made.
Yeah, this is for engineers.
Potentially, yeah. It's very much construction oriented stuff.
Mm-hmm. So first up is Charlie and James. And everyone giggles, and Harry's like, oh, it's a date. And Mr. Ajayi's right there, and he looks worried, but he doesn't say anything. And I think that feels out of character.
It does.
If this was season 1, I think he would have said something. So I don't know. I wish that they would have had him shut it down, even just to be like,
all right, boys, that's enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or the teacher death stare.
Yeah, literally anything.
Yeah. Listen, I just have a question. Do you ever have moments like that where you have to wonder, hey, these students have to fight their own battles, and I should not butt in, versus I should butt in? And I wonder if Mr. Ajayi is having some type of internal conflict there.
Okay, so I have had students where I've had a similar relationship that Charlie has with Mr. Ajayi. In those instances, I would intervene.
Okay, gotcha.
Because I have the relationship with Charlie where I know that this is going to be a trigger for him, that this is going to be an issue for him, and he needs to know someone's on his side, right? I would say something. There are definitely, I would not have said something when Imogen was, reading the shit out of Ben, dumping him in front of the entire trip. last episode. I would let that, and I would just take whatever beverage I have, and I'd just go. I pop my popcorn, you know?
Do exactly what they did.
Exactly. Right? But because I have the relationship, like, because I, as a teacher, know the, like, ins and outs of what's going on with Charlie, this is a situation where I would want to say something.
That makes sense. I was just wondering. I was like, how do you know this? Just so I can defend Mr. Ajay for a second, but that is a really good and fair point.
Yeah. So, the next bit is so fucking good. This is one of my favorite scenes. Next up is Nicholas Nelson and Ben Hope. And Ben's like, "Sir, I don't want to go with Nick Nelson." And he says, "I don't give a rat's ass, rude boy. Grow up."
That I wouldn't say it that way, but I would give some kind of response like that. Or my other response would be, "And I don't want to hear your complaining. Whatever."
Yeah. I heard that Nima did the rude boy line in his audition, and they decided to include it in the script.
Yes.
Which I love.
Was that line in the comic, or?
No.
So did he improv this?
Yeah, I guess in his, like, I don't know if it was a self-tape or if he came in for an audition or whatever, but he, improvised that, and they liked it so much that they left it.
I'm just saying, if he improvised that, seriously, I have a new celebrity crush right now, because...
Didn't you already?
I mean, that is true.
Yes.
But I mean, there's a difference, though. Like, I mean, I was attracted to Mr. Farouk, the character.
Fair. That's fair.
Right,
and
true,
I'm like,
true.
am I attracted to the actor? And now this is making me attracted to the actor. Like, the actor's attractive, don't get me wrong, but there is, like, a difference in
there is.
feelings, you know?
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
It's great, though. Also, Imogen's face when Ben, like, walks past after getting told off by Farouk, she's like, "That's right."
Yes, it's so good.
I'm here for it. It is incredible.
She's like, "He is fucking rude. You tell him, Mr. Farouk."
Mm-hmm. Alice does throw us a little bit of a bone, though, because the last group that's, like, publicly announced is Tara and Darcy.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, but I'm also like, okay, like, yeah, that makes sense, but, like, also, like, they're not in a great place right now, so really? We see the worksheet. And this is not Eiffel Tower vocabulary. This is basic tourist vocabulary.
I feel like that what is the number one basic tourist thing to do when you're in France?
That's true. But, like, calling it Eiffel Tower vocab, I don't know, I'd call it travel vocabulary.
Mm-hmm,
like, that's when I was, like, in language classes, like, when I was in Spanish class, they would frame it as, like, this is our travel unit, and this is where I would learn this shit. You know? I only wrote down the English for 2 reasons. I don't speak French, and I don't want to deal with all of the accents in French. So I just wrote down the English of what I noticed before the scene change, like, that I could actually, like, make out and read. If you do speak French, please let us know if these translations are correct, because I reiterate, I don't speak French. And of the Romance languages, French is the most different from Spanish, so I don't know what the fuck is happening here. But at least what Elle has written down in her gorgeous handwriting is, how much does it cost? Where can I find a map of the city? I'm looking for the bus stop. Where is it? Could you take my photo please? And the menu, please. And when I got to could you take my photo, please, I was like, Tao could have used this yesterday.
Yes. Yes, it could have.
When that family was asking. Although that still wouldn't have cleared up the crouching situation, so maybe it wouldn't have been very helpful. But yeah, so that's all tourist vocab. That's just like basic, you're going to another country and you want to be able to say some things in that country's language. This is the shit you learn.
Right. These are the questions you're going to have.
That and where's the bathroom?
Uh-huh.
But then we have the stuff where Elle is kind of pining and looking over at Tao, and there's the little, like, butterfly animation.
Tao is cracking up. And I'm like, who the fuck is he paired with? This is the grumpiest human being in this entire school that is a student, because I would argue Mr. Farouk maybe gives him a run for his money with his grumpiness.
Maybe?
But outside of his friend group, he is extremely grumpy with everyone.
Oh,
so
yeah.
who the fuck is he paired with that's making him laugh like this?
Yeah. But then we go to the best part. Imogen and Sahar are paired together. I lost my shit. I was like, oh my god! But yeah, so I lost my shit. As one would expect, given my whole
I got it.
brand for season 1.
Yeah.
But I do want to talk about their little conversation because Imogen asks, she's like, is this right? Sahar said, I don't take French, but I know that's wrong. And Imogen, my sweet baby angel, was so offended. It's like, all right, I don't take French either. C'est la vie. I love her. It's great. I love everything about it. It is my favorite. But then
my favorite is the next part.
This is also my favorite. It's all my favorite. I love it all. That's not true.
Yeah.
We're about to hard cut very soon to something that is not my favorite.
Yeah. But Isaac is a fucking hero.
It is so subtle. Like, it's not even, like, overacted or anything like that. If anything, it's kind of, I don't want to say it's underacted, but just the way, like, they deliver that line is really beautiful.
And it's quick, the way it's, like, moving through the characters, so we just get that little bit of it, but I would love to spend a full scene with just these two.
Yeah.
Like, just show me Isaac giving Harry the worst shit.
And it gives so much new context to what happens later on the Eiffel Tower. And I have, like, a full, like, note about it that I'm gonna, like, talk about and, like, compare it to what happens in that scene in the comics. But I love this moment. It just does so much for Isaac as a character, and it adds so much context to Harry's arc for the rest of the season, honestly.
Yeah. I never really clocked that, but I was like, oh, did Isaac get through to Harry here? And because Harry doesn't, like, let it show at all, like, you know, in the moment, but obviously it does get through to him later on. The tower.
And also, can we talk about the fact that not only is Isaac lecturing Harry on his behavior, but he's also doing all the work.
Yeah. And he's like doing that thing when you're, like, really pissed off, and so you're writing, like, very hard and fast. And he's like, I know you think it's funny to, like, point things out, like, as he is writing the answers. It's so good.
He said, I know you think it's funny to point things out about people and get a laugh out of your mates, but do you ever stop and think about how you're actually making people feel? Like, come on, Harry, where's your basic human empathy? And he does an impression of Harry on get a laugh out of your mates.
It's very good.
It's so good. It's like Cormac possessed Toby. Because it's, like, spot on.
I might have to use the audio in that reel so that people can hear it after we laugh about it, because you're right. It's so good. And Harry just says, oh, come on, leave it out, book boy. And I love the idea of that. That's, like, his big dig, like, book boy. Like, that's an insult to Isaac, of all people.
Isaac's like, hell yeah. Or no, Isaac's response is it would something along the lines of, it would do you some good to read a book or two.
Yeah. I have some recommendations for you, Harry. And then we got to Charlie and James. And this is where James is saying, it's so stupid that everyone thinks it's me. Just because we're both gay doesn't mean we fancy each other. And then he pauses, and then he's like, no offense. Like, I hope you don't fancy me, because I just straight up told you that I don't. Charlie's like, none taken. And this is when James is like, do you think Isaac thinks it was me? I just don't want him to think it was me. And Charlie's like, he knows it wasn't you. And James says, oh, good. And it goes back to his worksheet, and then a beat passes, and he's like, well, it wasn't him, was it? Like, wait a minute. And Charlie's like, absolutely not.
I love James.
And then we get to Tara and Darcy, and it hurts.
Tara is, like, really picking some interesting moments to double down this episode. I'm like, now's your moment, girl. You're about to climb up all these stairs right now.
Like,
right now's the moment.
I feel like there is also this part of me where I'm like, I get it, because it's like, this is on her mind, and she's just, like, building and it comes out of you at inopportune times.
That's true.
And so, like, I get it so deeply at the same time.
Yeah.
Because you can tell every single time that she brings it up, it's like bursting out of her. Like she's been holding this back for so long and she just can't anymore.
Yeah, it's true.
It's very sad.
So she says she wants to talk about what happened at the Paris trip meeting. And Darcy does not even take a breath before replying with a deflection. Like, she had that ready to go. She's like, oh, about Tal's proposal? Yeah. I kind of feel like we all should have known it would have been a disaster after that, which is a great line.
And what I noticed something this time around that I haven't noticed in the past. It's the exact same tone of voice that she uses every single time that she's deflecting. Where it's the same tone of voice that she uses of like, we should be Fiona and Shrek. And my reason for this is like, it's the same exact inflection, the same tone of voice. And it hurts me. I'm like, oh, this is rehearsed. This is planned. You came up with and you thought these deflections through. And it hurts.
I also want to say Kizzy just like absolutely kills all of these scenes because not only do they use the same like inflection and stuff, but their eyes like gloss over. Like, how do you fucking achieve that is what I want to know. The way that they like their eyes, they're gone for a second. Like,
it hurts.
It's so good.
And they have like the whole conversation. Tara tries to like bring it back and say like that's not what she meant. And my only note is that Darcy still deflects it, so Tara drops it. And like it hurts.
Yeah, Tara's like, Darcy, you know that's not what I meant. Remember when we were walking into Truum? And Darcy just like denies it, but also her body language changes at that point. Like now that Tara is being direct, she's not making eye contact. She's like physically closing in on herself. She's like, no, not really, no. And so it's just another instance of her just totally shutting down whenever this gets brought up. And I think knowing the reasoning behind it makes it even more painful to me to rewatch it and be like, no, you deserve the love.
Because it just seems like Darcy just like, maybe she just has this feeling that she doesn't deserve love in many ways.
Yeah.
Because, and I know what that's like sometimes when you grow up in like with toxic family dynamics, and then when you start to surround yourself with people that actually do care about you, you start to get shocked. Like, wait, like you actually like me? You actually do care about me? You want to spend time with me? And it's just a very surprising that I feel like that's something that she's kind of unpacking in the moment right here.
Yeah, for sure. So then we cut to Nick and Ben. This motherfucker. It drives me insane how he will not take accountability for his own fucking actions. He is like sitting there stewing, blaming Nick for all of these things that Nick did nothing. Nick did nothing. He was a decent fucking human being and good things happened to him. And that's how you got here. So like, it drives me insane. But he finally like explodes and is like, are you happy now? And Nick is just like, what? And it's like, he's like, it's like your life goal to ruin my life. And it's like, you're doing that all yourself, my guy.
Yeah, he's definitely playing the victim here.
Yeah, he is. And Ben says, first Charlie and now Imogen, you were the one who told her about me and Charlie, weren't you? Like, as if you haven't been fucking stalking him this entire trip. Constantly staring at him, being in his vicinity. Like, no, nobody told her anything. She saw it with her own eyes.
Right, yeah. Yeah, there's absolutely no accountability here from Ben, but I'm taking that the two of you aren't a fan of this quote-unquote redemption that he goes on by the end of the
I would
season.
argue it's not a redemption. I don't think he's redeemed in the end.
Yeah, I mean, so I feel one of two ways about it, actually. I feel like by the end of the season, I feel like it's very interesting for him to go on this journey and for him to at least say, like, hey, Charlie, I fucked up. But what I do like at the same time is that I feel like if this was any other show, Charlie would have just outright forgiven Ben. And it would have been like, okay, I forgive you. And I like that Charlie does it. Charlie immediately says, like, I'm not giving you the time of day right now.
Exactly.
And that is something I really appreciated. I feel like that's good representation because you don't have to forgive your abuser. Like,
Yes.
it's really great for Ben for Ben to go through this whole like internal thing where he realizes like, hey, I'm pretty shitty, but that's for him to do to himself. And the people that he abused do not need to forgive him. They don't owe him shit.
Yeah, I agree.
So those are my overall thoughts on Ben's arc.
Great thoughts. I feel like he learned nothing. I think that it was all manipulation the entire time.
Oh, okay. That's totally fair, yeah.
Even in the end, Charlie has made it clear from the end of season 1 that he does not want anything to do with him. And Ben continuously breaks that boundary.
I feel you, yeah.
I like that read of it, though, that he is like, I hope that is, like, I hope I'm wrong. I hope he did learn something.
Right.
But, yeah.
But Charlie never, just to clarify, Charlie never has to forgive him. Charlie does not owe him anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, he can never speak to Ben for the rest of his life for all he cares. And you know what? I love that for him. Do it.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
I do like that we don't see this, like, tied up in a pretty bow forgiveness type of deal.
Yes. Okay, yeah. So, but Nick is very, like, he's looking like he's really struggling not to start swinging. Like, he is getting worked up. And this is when Ben says, it's your mission in life to, like, mess my life up. And he says, you never cared about any of them. You used Imogen for popularity points, and you didn't actually like Charlie. You just liked having control over him. And I'm like, pop off. That is exactly what it was. And I'm so glad someone's finally calling him on it.
Yes.
And then his delusional ass is like, well, what if I said I want Charlie back? And everyone was like, when it came out, like, no, no. And he says, I get it. I was a dick back then, but I was dealing with my own shit. Charlie didn't even give me a chance to figure myself out. And then you came along and stole him from me. Charlie really liked me before you got in his head. At least I was nice enough not to give him a hickey where everyone could see. And this is where I pulled in Alyssa, and I have a paragraph I'd like to just read.
Okay.
There's so much to unpack with this statement that he has just made. I'm glad he admits that he has been treating Charlie like trash, but he uses the excuse of going through things, and that's not an excuse to treat people like shit. And even if it were, then how do you explain how you've been treating Imogen? Because you're saying things like you were figuring things out, you didn't have enough time to get your shit together. So that implies that you've made it to the other side of that. You have your shit together and you figured things out. So why are you treating her like shit? Because we've literally seen you treat her like trash in front of literally everyone on this trip for like 2 episodes now.
Mm-hmm.
And also saying that Charlie didn't give you a chance to figure yourself out. He didn't owe it to you to give you a chance to figure your shit out. We all have different boundaries. And it sucks, if it's someone you really like and feel like it could be a future, but that timing isn't right. But you have to respect that boundary and let them go. And yes, now Charlie is with Nick, who is figuring his shit out, but he's getting more from Nick than what he got from. He got absolutely nothing from Ben. Nick is
making space for each other in a way that Ben never did.
Exactly. They're constantly filling each other's cups. And so I'm just like, take accountability for your goddamn actions, you little weasel of a human being. And stop blaming Nick when you are the problem. If you're going to act this way, own it.
Yeah.
End of rant.
Oh, absolutely.
I get so mad. I get so worked up.
And I hope I wasn't coming from like a bad place with like my read of the situation.
No, that's what I'm saying. I like it. I like the idea that he's learning something, and I hope that he does. I hope that in the future he treats people better because he's learned a lesson from this.
In his next relationship, I would hope like he learned like, hey, I was a piece of shit in these relationships. Because I feel like, who hasn't gone through a situation where like, hey, I was a toxic person in a relationship, and then your next relationship, you say, like, okay, I learned from that situation and I am better. That doesn't necessarily mean the previous person has to forgive me, and that's okay. But I will be better moving forward.
Yes, exactly. Nick is pissed. And I'm assuming he's also a bit anxious because while he knows that, like, he's happy with Charlie and Charlie is happy with him, I mean, they're still new. Like, I think sometimes I forget how short of a time they've been together just because it's like, we're in season 2, like, but season 2 picked up like literally the next day after season 1 ended.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's been like some months. It's not like they've been together for a year. I'm sure there's still a little bit, especially since he's not fully come out yet and he's still struggling with the guilt of that and feeling like he's doing to Charlie what Ben did to Charlie. I'm sure that there's a crack in that, in that foundation where he's like, oh God, could he go back to Ben? And so I think that's why he brings it up later on the steps.
I feel that.
All right. So we are now cutting back to the teachers.
Mr. Ajay asks if everyone is done. And there's just like a cacophony of responses, like, ah. Everyone is done in the sense they do not want to be doing this and they know that there are no stakes.
I also like the idea of like them being like, is everyone done? And somebody just being like, I never started because I don't know how to read this. I take French.
Wait, did somebody say that, or was that you projected?
No, I'm saying I like the idea that somebody somewhere in that field was like, bro, we never even started. We can't read this. We've just been hanging out.
The fact that no one did is unrealistic.
Yeah.
Did they have to like report what they learned at any point, or was that just like, okay, cool, you did a learning then?
Presumably, they handed in that paper.
They did have a paper. That's right. Mm-hmm.
So Mr. Ajay warns them that it's very hot today, so take it easy on the stairs and make sure you stay hydrated.
And I noted that I need my own personal Mr. Ajay to remind me to stay hydrated.
Yeah.
Because I forget all the time.
And Mr. Farouk is me. He's like, wait, we didn't get tickets for later? Mr. Ajay's like, no. And he's like, and then walks away, rolls his eyes and walks away.
Also
Could
me.
the teachers have at least gotten lift tickets?
Yeah, the teachers like, we'll meet you at the top.
Yeah.
You're all young.
Yeah, one go up and like greet everybody, and then the other one gets everybody on the stairs and then comes up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the bottom, be like, I'll catch up to you in a second. You can.
Yeah. Mr. Ajay also gives us like a really cute smirk whenever Farouk walks away, and I'm like, do you think that he was like, I'm gonna walk behind him the whole time to get like free ogling access as we go up all these steps?
I get it, Mr. Ajay. I get it.
Mr. Ajay's got it bad in this episode.
Yeah, he does.
So bad.
So bad. Yeah, later it gets worse.
Thank God next episode happens because I think that he might die otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah.
So can I read you guys the note that I have about the Eiffel Tower montage?
Please.
Okay, so it says, all right, if I have the time or spoons later, I will go back and take notes on this montage, but right now I need to use this as time to self-regulate. But I do want to remark on Mr. Ajay's response to Darcy laying on the floor at the top of the stairs because this is 100% me. And he says, no, we will not have this, thank you. And he like offers his hand to pull her out. I'm like, that's me. I do that. I'm like, no.
Yeah, don't be so dramatic, sweetie.
This is not acceptable. Please stop. Cease and desist.
I called this the ascending the tower montage, so that's not as good as the other. Nick is immediately, he says, come on, Charlie, and grabs his hand and drags him up the stairs. And I'm like, what happened to being low key? Because this is high key. This is high key, my guys.
They've been high key this whole time. They do not have a low key setting.
They don't. They do not. But I just love that was their goal for Paris, and this is what we got.
It's a good thing Nick comes out in the next episode, because otherwise the rumor mill would be a buzz, 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 buzz.
Yes.
Which I feel like it's kind of a good build-up, though, because I feel like it's showing that the two of them are given less of a shit.
Oh, definitely.
That's true.
Yeah, this episode is really important in, like, the arc of Nick's journey to what happens in the next episode.
To coming out, yeah. For sure. I also just want to point out, this one is not a fun note, that Nick is running up these stairs and he is dragging Charlie up with them, and Charlie says, slow down. And we know that Charlie can best Nick on the stairs. We know.
Yeah.
And so this is another sign of showing that he is getting weaker and weaker from not eating and from being out in the heat, and kind of showing us like another progression towards what's going to come later in the episode. I
don't like this note, Ashley.
I know. And my last note on it says, and this makes me really sad on top of this very cute montage that we get. They had to throw that one dagger in there. So then we cut to Tao and Elle. Elle is ahead of him, and he like kind of catches up to her. And then we get Tara and Imogen coming up the steps, and Imogen is freaking the fuck out. She's like, no, I don't want to go. And Tara's like, yes, come on, let's go. That was, I'm sure, over exaggerated for sake of the show, but Rhea Norwood is terribly afraid of heights and was extremely terrified going up the Eiffel Tower.
Aww.
I just felt very seen by that, because I'm also terrified of heights, and that would be my reaction. But also, I would book tickets for the lift, because my knee hurt just thinking about ascending the stairs.
Yeah. So now they're at the top. We talked about Darcy falling over and Mr. Ajayi getting her up. And then they all get together and take a big group picture. Tara takes it and she says, all right, everyone yell France! And they all yell France, which I thought was super cute. And then we cut to Nick and Charlie broken off alone. And I have to say, this is a bold fucking move for them to take this picture hickey side first to send to Nick's mom. I'm like, she's going to take one, Sarah Nelson is going to take one look at this photo and go straight to CVS. She's going to be like, they're on a trip together and they're sending me photos of them with hickeys. I have to intervene.
Good. Mom of the century.
Yes. So one of Harry's minions sees them take this picture and he's like, oh, Nick, is that hickey from you then? And Nick so confidently is just like, so what if it was? Are you jealous?
I love that.
I have so many feelings about this, because I mean, like, just thinking ahead to him coming out in Truth or Dare, which is one of my favorite moments of the entire series.
Yes.
This is like a really important step, because this is almost him testing the waters of like, he's not denying it, but he's not denying it. And I feel like that's a big step for him and for Charlie, although Charlie takes it like to the extreme negative, where he's like, maybe we shouldn't be hanging out so that they don't keep thinking it's you. But also that whole conversation is really important. But I don't want to skip Harry's response.
Yeah, I also think Ben's discussion before they came on to the Eiffel Tower played into this a lot too. Because he's like, oh no, I've got to like get my shit together and make this like legit official because I'm in love with him.
Yeah.
And I like that Charlie's like fully taken aback and we get like the little hearts float up and he's like, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Before the negativity sets in.
Yeah. And Harry, of all people, says to leave them alone. And this was a moment from the comics I really wasn't sure if they were going to use. I was convinced they were going to cut this.
Yeah?
Why is that?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I don't think I could tell you going back to before the season came out why I thought they were going to cut it. I just thought that it was this really random thing. In the comics, it kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of it. It was like, there's not really anywhere that it's grounded in the story. So it's just this weird thing that happens. But the addition of Isaac's lecture in the park beforehand, it grounded it a bit in the story in a way that made a lot more sense. and made it feel like, oh, there's at least a seed of something that maybe sparked a thought of, oh, maybe I am being god-awful about this. And
yeah, because you're right. In the comic, there's zero catalyst. It just happens. And you're like, what? But that, Isaac having that chat with him was the catalyst in the show. I feel like that was the intention of adding that in. And so, it was a very smart move.
Interesting.
I also want to point out, though, this is something that I just noticed on this watch. In Harry's goons down there is included the person from Truth Dare that's at the party that's asking all the invasive, like doing all the daring, and the one that's like, oh, I never would have guessed that Nick was gay. They're down there hanging out with Harry. And we see them again with the guy that asks, hey, Nick, does that hickey from you then? We see them together again in the museum later, laughing at Charlie passing out.
Oh.
Then we get my favorite, because they're like very confused. They're like, did Harry just defend us? And this is where Charlie says maybe they shouldn't be hanging out so much so that people don't think it was Nick. And Nick's just like, you do know it was me, right? And he's so happy and so proud of himself.
He's so amused. More people might think. And I think that's the part that Nick also like clung to and was like, you do know. It wouldn't be them thinking it. It would be them finding out that it was me.
Figuring out the truth.
Yeah. I just love that.
I love Charlie's, I think you remember you being there. Like, it's just like really, it goes from this like moment of tension to this like cute and flirty moment, which Alice did really well in this season and I think is so necessary, and I will not shut up about it. I'm sorry. I'm actually not sorry. I'm not going to stop talking about how well Alice relieves tension in this season because it's so necessary.
Yeah.
We need it.
And they accomplish it so naturally.
Exactly.
So Nick is like, you do know it was me, right? And Charlie's instantly brighter and smiley. And when Nick is like, good, he looks at Charlie like it is the hardest thing in the world not to kiss him in this moment. He is like, eyes, lips. Like, it's so good. And then he just turns away.
So then Charlie says he's going to go find the others, and Nick's phone is going off in his bag. And by the time he pulls it out, he has a missed call from his dad that goes to voicemail when he tries to call back.
Also, this thing that Kit does with his eyes during intense moments where he like darts his eyes back and forth. He does it a lot, like in intense moments. And it really works for me. Like he's trying to like convey the anxiety that Nick is feeling. And I feel it, like it works for me every time.
It feels like he's looking for the right way to feel.
Yeah.
Like he's looking for something in the universe that's going to tell him how he should react in this moment.
Yeah.
I would love to share my transitional note with you, which is just back on the ground. Because I didn't know how to, like, describe where they are or whatever. I don't even know.
I just wrote downstairs in my notes.
I put the lock area.
The lock, yeah. Because they're, like, on, like, a bridge over the Seine. My notes here are poor because the scene does things to me.
It kills me.
It's beautiful.
Tao walks up to Charlie, who has a lock and a note, and he's like, you can buy one back there. And he looks over and sees Elle. And so he gives him like a piney, like he gives Elle a piney look. And while this is happening, Nick is taking silly pictures of Darcy and James. And I'm like, I want to see those photos. I want those behind the scenes photos.
I don't know why this is only just occurring to me now. Tao and Nick taking pictures is such an important part of the way that they interface with their relationships. I want them to bond over that. Like,
yeah.
Obviously, Nick is taking pictures on his phone, and Tao is 100% going to see that as lesser than shooting on 35 millimeter. But I want to see them talk about it. I want to see them connect over the importance that photography has in their lives.
Huh.
No, you're right. I would love to see them like bond over that.
Did you just spoil season 7?
So Charlie sees that Tao is like looking over at Elle pining, and he's like, do you really think that things aren't going to work out? And Tao says, even if she does like me back, even if something did happen, I would still mess it up like I always do everything. And this is when my soul starts to die a little bit. Charlie's like, you don't mess things up. Name one thing you've messed up. And Tao says, the cinema date, my art coursework, your life multiple times. And Charlie's like, how? And you can see Tao like make the decision to finally say it. And so he admits that he was talking to Isaac about Charlie and some people overheard. And the next thing that they knew, he was getting bullied every day. Joe Locke's nonverbal acting is so good. My note is just all caps. Give him awards.
Yeah, no.
It's so good.
Kit got the Emmy for last season. Joe needs it for this season.
Yeah.
For sure.
Tao says, I never wanted to tell you because I didn't want you to hate me. And Charlie, being the nicest human on the planet, he takes a second to like take that in, and then he looks Tao right in the eye and he's like, but you know that wasn't your fault, don't you? It was clearly an accident. We've been friends since the first day of year 7, and then we get, my note says, Tiny Charlie and Tiny Tao, ... Tiny Tao! Because Jeremy, that is his nickname from Elle in the comics, because in the comics he's much shorter than her.
Oh, okay.
And she calls him Tiny Tao. And so I'm like, I really want them to
this
credit
is actual Tiny Tao then.
Yes, I want them to credit that actor as Tiny Tao. I meant to look it up to see, but I'm sure it says Young Tao. But I wish that they would call it Tiny Tao.
My note is Baby Tao and Charlie bonding over Radiohead. Of course, Romeo and Juliet is Baby Tao's favorite movie.
Can I just say, I feel very attacked by the line, have you ever seen the Romeo and Juliet movie from the 90s?
I know.
And I'm like, way to make me feel fucking ancient here. And I was trying to do like the math. I feel like, I'm 32. I'll be 33 by the time this episode comes out. But like, for the equivalent year, like, was when I was like that age, it would have been 1985. So to think that the movie from 1996 is the same thing. Thank you, Ashley, for whipping out. Is that a VHS?
VHS.
I don't think I completely processed it. But, okay, wow, yeah, lost my train of thought. But yeah, like the fact that like 1985 was the equivalent for me as like 1996 was for them.
Yeah.
Just makes me feel old, and I don't like it.
Yeah, I feel you. This is so adorable, though, and I think that they absolutely slayed this casting.
Mm-hmm. They are adorable, so... I love the look in, like, in little Charlie's eyes, too. Like, how he's looking at Tao. There's so much love there. Like,
yeah.
Just the face acting right there is perfect.
Mm-hmm. So he says, I was so shy and scared of everyone, but I immediately thought how cool and funny and kind you were. You were the only person that I met that day that I really wanted to be friends with. And Tao's like, are you guilt tripping me into being nice about myself? Which I can relate to.
I've been on both sides of that coin.
Yeah, for sure. And Charlie's like, even if things don't work out with you and Elle, even if you make mistakes sometimes, you're a good person who deserves love. And I cry. Also, I love Joe Locke's eyes in the sunlight are so pretty. Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like we see them inside so often and they look so dark. So when we get to see them outside, I'm like, look, there are those baby blues. They also did a TikTok in the sunlight this morning, and I was like, look at how pretty his eyes are. And this is when Charlie writes Charlie hurt Tao on his lock instead of Nick. And Tao notices, and he's like, wait, isn't that for you and Nick? Charlie's like, no, it's for us. And Tao like rolls his eyes and gives him a huge hug. And my note just says, I love them, and this makes me cry, and that is all. It's so sweet.
So I wrote down like what they said after, where Charlie says, people might think you gave me this hickey if you keep this up. And Tao said, so might help deflect the rumors. And as someone who was in a very, very close same gender friendship, as a closeted bisexual, I am surprised that there haven't been rumors about Charlie and Tao.
Uh-huh.
Because I wasn't out and I wasn't outed. And like people were convinced that the person that I was really close to in high school and I were dating when it was not the case. My cousin actually asked me like 2 or 3 years ago, point blank. So he was like, so did you two ever actually date? And I was like, no. And I said point blank, had Eddie not come along, it might have happened.
Mine was with my best friend, and everybody always asked us if we were dating, including my parents. And then, so like when I came out to my mom, I was like, and no, I never did anything with, I was like, that was just a friendship. But I love this. I love that he's like, so it'll help deflect the rumors. I'm like, king shit. Yes.
Yeah.
Like, I love it. Like an unapologetic ally.
And like also he's just like, yeah, I'll take the heat if it makes things easier for you and Nick.
Exactly.
I love seeing this friendship unfold because, and I feel like that's what makes this show so subversive in many ways too, because I really do like that this show is showing the importance of friendships as well, because Charlie's relationship with Tao is just as important as his relationship with Nick.
Yeah, 100%.
I just really love seeing that representation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So then Elle comes by and she's like, to the Louvre. And so Tao's like, okay, I'm going to go follow her, and runs off. And Charlie locks the lock on the little post, which fans did find after recording. And I have seen people taking pictures with it on the post. Yeah.
Field trip.
So then we go to the Louvre. And they're outside, and they're getting the instructions that they have until 5 p.m. And if anyone gets lost, they're going to be left there to be locked in. This looks super green screen to me.
I didn't clock that, but that's
even
fair.
though I know that they did film at the Louvre. This shot specifically looks super green screen to me for some reason. But then we go inside, and Darcy is not impressed with the Mona Lisa.
Can I share a note that I have before Darcy's disappointment? It says, Paris squad with Mona Lisa, not pictured, waiting in line for over an hour to see it.
Yeah, true.
Wait, they waited an hour?
Have you ever seen pictures of the room in the Louvre where the Mona Lisa is?
No.
It's like roped off. There's a fucking massive line because that's why every tourist is there, is to see the Mona Lisa.
Just a line just to look at the painting.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then it's tiny.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I clocked too. Like, that is so small.
Yeah, everyone is like, it's underwhelming.
Do you know, did they actually, you said they filmed at the Louvre, but did they actually film the Mona Lisa, like, as it was pictured?
I don't know that much. I just know that they did have some time at the Louvre. And I know that they also were only allowed to have, like, the cast and crew in there. So there is an interview that came out after with Joe and Kit. And Joe is like, what I want to know is, how did they get all those other people in the Louvre? There was nobody in there with us. Where did those people come from?
It's AI actors.
We do not support.
We do not. Let's cancel Netflix, everybody.
Well, not until we finish Heartstopper, please.
But Elle is like, get a fucking grip. This is the Mona Lisa. Which I'm like, fucking tracks.
Yeah, I was like, that is ours.
Yeah.
I feel Darcy.
Darcy is speaking for the people in this moment.
Yeah. It's true. So then we get this beautiful shot, and this is some camera stuff that I noticed, Alyssa, that this is like a one shot where it pans from Nick and Charlie, and then it goes up to like Tara, Darcy, Isaac, and Imogen, and then it cuts through them and goes over to Tao and Elle.
And it's like all one tracking shot.
All one, yeah, and it's very beautifully done.
Mm-hmm. What I really fixated on is just how completely enamored Elle is.
Yeah.
Like, she's just in heaven. And Tao is completely enamored by her.
Yeah. Yeah. Darcy is saying, I reckon I'd look absolutely great in a gilded golden frame, stunning and glowing and looking spectacular. But I feel like even this is a show. Like, this is her showing off to everyone to keep the attention light and focused on her so that she doesn't have to be alone with Tara and have things get too serious.
Yeah. Why do you have to ruin it for everybody, Ashley?
I'm sorry. But yes, then that's when, after that is when we go to Tao and Elle, and she is like, and I get that. I haven't been to the Louvre, but I have been in some pretty important to me art exhibits where it's overwhelming as fuck to be like in that space. So I get that. And I saw this tweet that I think of every time that I see this scene now, where it was like a screenshot of this, of Elle like totally enamored with this painting, and then Tao's behind her just looking at her, and it was like, in a room full of paintings, Tao only has eyes for Elle. And so like every time I see this scene, that's all I think about, and I'm like, yes, it's so true.
And like, not for nothing, like Tao gives a shit about art and art history.
Yeah.
So like the fact that he's getting so caught up in Elle when he's surrounded by all of this art and art history is really significant.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of feelings about it that I'm going to reserve for later.
Okay.
Cool.
So then we go to the stairs, and it's Nick and Elle. This conversation, this is one of the quotes that was in the trailer that immediately made me cry. And at the trailer, I was crying, like listening to this conversation happen. And then seeing it in the show was like so much more emotional. And so, and Nick says, I don't think I really understand any of the art, but it's nice to look at.
Same.
I feel the same way.
Yeah. And Elle says, you don't always need to understand it to enjoy it. And he says that this one feels kind of romantic. And she says, yeah. And then my note says, Nicholas Nelson drops a bomb on Elle and all of us. He says, I guess that's true of life as well. And she says, what is? And he says, like, you don't have to understand your feelings completely to know that you like something. You don't have to always have figured everything out. You can just feel. My note is all caps. God damn, that is some good stuff. Like, that is so true. And so, like, that is kind of like the synopsis of his entire journey, right? Like, he didn't know at the beginning, like, what was going on or anything, but he just trusted the feeling and went with it. And I love this so much. And the fact that he's giving this to Elle, who, like, totally needs to hear it right now. He's like, inadvertently giving Tao the push that he needs, like, in certain ways, and also giving Elle the push that she needs in certain ways. And he's not even, like, really trying to. It's just happening. And I think that that is just beautiful.
Agreed.
I also love the way that the shutter of Tao's camera, like, interrupts the scene and grabs her attention. And I'm not going to go over it because I just went on about it in the last episode, just like the way that Tao's photography is just as significant to their relationship as Nick's photography is to his with Charlie's.
Yeah.
But like, just that shutter, and she turns around and goes to him, and it just, like, it hit me in such a way, and it made me so happy. Also because I knew it was coming, but like
yeah. She's like, yeah, I know what I feel for Tao. And she goes with it. And also, he's taking silly photos of Tara and Darcy. And I'm just saying, this is not fair for them to put all of these silly photo shoots in and not give us the photos. What the hell? Netflix, where are those photos? I just realized I forgot to point out something very important that is about to, like, be important. But I meant, I had the note in it when we were talking about breakfast at the very beginning of this episode, that Tao has butterflies on his shirt.
That is very important. Yes.
So Elle and Tao break off together. And then Charlie comes up and joins Nick. And she says she just likes being here. And they, like, do a cute, like, little spinny dance out there. And he says, you don't want to go back to the others? And she says no. And his face, like, Will Gow's acting here is perfect. It's like, I see confusion, pleasure, nervousness and excitement, like, all at once. He's like, oh.
I want to point something out as well. The section of the museum they're in when they have this conversation is the Egyptian section, which in the comics is Ella's canonically of Egyptian descent. So the fact that that is the area of the museum that they choose to put Ellen Tao in when she's making this. Also, number one, it's gorgeous in that gallery. But number two, the fact that it's specifically all Egyptian art, ancient Egyptian art to be specific, I feel like is also very significant of like this being the place where Ella's admitting how much she loves being here. And it just stood out to me on my recent watch, and I was like, oh shit, Egypt.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
And this isn't part of her lore on the show?
I mean, it just hasn't been clarified.
It hasn't been mentioned yet, but in the comics, and this is in a scene that we haven't actually seen yet.
Yeah.
Where she mentions that her family, that her mom went back to Egypt over the summer.
Oh, okay.
To visit her grandparents, but that she couldn't, or she didn't go because they're not as welcoming of trans folk and it's not safe for her to go.
Gotcha.
And that is a scene we do know that they have filmed already for season 3. So we will find out if it's going to be canonical in the show or not.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, so then we cut to Nick and Charlie on the stairs, and they're reading the map, trying to figure out how to get to the Greek statues. And fucking Harry and Ben come down the steps. Yeah, and company, yeah. And Ben, like, pauses and looks at them, and I'm like, just fucking stop. Just stop. Like, what?
It's gross, and it's creepy, and it's stalker behavior.
Yeah, I hate it. Everyone in this scene hates it. And Charlie's not looking good. He's like super sweaty and clammy, and he's like sweaty, not in a heat way, sweaty in a like sick way. Mm-hmm. And Nick tells him, like, you should probably know, when we were at the Eiffel Tower, like, Ben said that he wants to get back with you. He really believes that he has a chance. And Charlie's like, he doesn't. And I think that Nick is a bit relieved. I think that there was, there's enough, like I said earlier, like enough insecurity left in him right now that he probably really did need to hear that. And Nick goes to stand up and tells Charlie like they should move on. And Charlie's vision starts to blur. And he looks really fucking sick here. And I'm surprised that Nick doesn't like stop and ask any questions or like check on him in any way, because it's very physically apparent that he is not doing well here. And I understand like we got to get from point A to point B and stuff, but I just feel like IRL, like Nick would have been like, are you okay?
I feel like he would especially be keyed into it in this moment because of the conversation that they just had about Ben.
Yeah. And so it's a little the fact that he literally has the croissant like in his backpack. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I will say I really like the way that they do the like feeling faint.
Yeah.
Like how they portray that with the like sound kind of like muffling and the sound effect of the heartbeat and the animation. It's really, really effective, which I would expect nothing less from this show, but I really, really appreciated it. It reminded me a lot of Nick's test anxiety during that first GCSE, but with white instead of with the black in the animation.
I agree. So then we cut to Tara and Darcy, and they're taking photos of this statue. And Darcy's like, I think I look just like her. Do I not have the same physique, the same drama? And Darcy's like, I don't know, do the pose and then I'll see. And so they start to like take pictures on Darcy's phone, and then Darcy's mom texts, and Tara innocently is just like, oh, your mom texts, and Darcy fucking flips out and snatches the phone away, and like instantly the joy is like erased from her, right? Like she is shut down. She's like, let's go to the next statue. And Tara decides that she's going to push this. And this is when I was like, she's speaking out today. This is like definitely a breaking point because she's been holding this in for too long. So she lays in on her. How come I have never even met your parents? And Darcy says, I don't know. Come on. And like tries to push her along. And she says, "Why do you always do that? Why do you avoid the issue? Sometimes I feel like you're hiding stuff from me." And Darcy turns and faces her at this point, but she's like, "Well, I'm not." And she says, "I've never met your parents and I've never been to your house, and you didn't even want to say I love you back." And Darcy like deflates a bit, and she's like, it was just a casual I love you. You said you didn't mean it like that." And Tara says, "But you know I did. You know I do." And Karina's acting here is so good. This line delivery is chef's kiss.
Mm-hmm.
And Darcy just like freezes. Like panic has fully set in at this moment. And Tara walks away.
And I fall completely apart because it kills me and it hurts and I hate it.
Yeah. And this was another, we got a clip of this in the trailer, and it worried us then, and rightfully so.
Mm-hmm. You were the one who pointed it out, and I was like, I was living in blissful ignorance, and then you ruined it for me, Ashley.
I'm so sorry.
No.
I can't help but read into things too much, okay? I love this outfit that Tara has on. I love it so much. But is this a popcorn shirt? And are they coming back?
I don't know, but yes.
Like, I looked up.
We got it.
Yeah, I looked up like orange popcorn shirts to try to find like one similar, and I found several that were similar. And I was like, I think that they might be coming back into style, which like I had several popcorn shirts as a child and preteen. So to see them coming back is like a bit of a loop for me.
So I'm pulling up pictures right now to see if it is in fact actually a popcorn shirt. Oh, it so is.
It definitely is, right?
It so is. I just found like the perfect, like, it's a close-up where you can just see her shoulders. That's 100% a popcorn shirt.
Yeah.
While y'all were talking, I had to Google popcorn shirts to
Okay.
see, like, what are we talking about?
They're teeny tiny little shirts, and then they stretch out when you put them on to a full
I see
shirt.
that, yeah. Okay. Interesting.
And I could tell by the like texture of it. I was like, is that, I think that she's wearing a popcorn shirt.
The texture kind of looks like popcorn when they're not like on a person, like when they're like in their shrunken state. So that's where the name comes from.
I see it, yeah, definitely. Interesting, okay. Making a comeback. I never even knew they were a thing.
Oh, the 90s and early aughts. So then we cut to the rest of the group walking around. And this conversation that Nick and Isaac are having cracks me up. Nick is like, what do they do to make those statues so accurate? Like, back in the day, all they had was a big bit of rock and a carving tool. Like, what would that even be? And Isaac is like, a chisel. And he's like, a chisel? And Isaac is like, yeah. And he's like, but how'd they do it with just a chisel?
This entirely.
It's like very background. But once I heard like them how did they, all they used to have was a big bit of rock, and then I was like, wait, I have to know what we're talking about. So I went back and paid attention.
That is the conversation Nick and Isaac would have, though. Like,
yeah, exactly that.
I would expect nothing less from a conversation between them two.
Yeah.
The fucking rugby lad and the bookworm? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's perfect.
That's one of the reasons why I like this season arguably more than the last season, because I like to see like more characters interacting with each other. It's not just the Nick and Charlie show.
Yeah.
Like, you actually get to see like them build relationships with other people, and that's really exciting. Like,
yes.
Nick talking to Isaac, like, I missed this entirely. I'm like, I need to go back and see this scene now.
Yeah, and I really love the like Nick and Tao development that we get this season too.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Did get distracted by how unwell Charlie looks, because he's not in a good way. And like, obviously he passes out moments later, but he is not doing well.
Yeah, so this happens right before, and then they catch up to a very upset looking Darcy, who Tara has just walked away from. So this is kind of like bringing them all back together to reorient us for this next bit. And the second that Nick and Isaac show up, Darcy has that fake smile on and is like, yeah, hey, and like walks off with them. And once she's behind them again, her face falls again, but like she's so quick to put that face on. And that fucking hurts me.
Mm-hmm.
And then it cuts to Charlie, who has fallen behind. And yeah, he's looking even clammier, and he's moving really slow, and his breathing is kind of shallow.
He like calls out to Nick to say that he doesn't feel well.
Mm-hmm.
And then he faints.
And thank God Nick is there, and Nick catches him.
And also thank God Nick has the sense to call for Farouk.
Yes.
Who is the teacher that of the options, that is the teacher that I would choose in this moment. It is not the teacher who shows up, but it is the teacher that I would choose to call for.
Yeah. Also, I want to point out, this is another, I have so many sad notes I'm so sorry. But Darcy is standing off to the side, and when Charlie faints and Nick catches him, Darcy like turns and looks and sees it, and then turns back around and like doesn't register it at all. And at first I was like, what the hell? Like, was this a continuity error type thing? But then later we see her like turn around whenever he says, someone get Mr. Farouk. She turns around and realizes what's happening and comes over. Mm-hmm. And I think she was so in her head about the Tara situation that she like doesn't even register anything that's going on around her in that moment until Nick's panic yell breaks through and pulls her back into the moment. So that's just another sad note I had. Sorry.
but then it gets happy.
Yes.
Because we cut to Tao and Elle. And let me tell you, right? So they're like sitting in this little window, and I was like, oh my God. And then it cuts to the shot of like from their backs, which is an exact recreation of the like panel from the comics that begins this scene in the comic. The way I screamed. There are a few times in this episode that are like shot for shot from the comics, and so I like freaked the fuck out because I'm like, oh my God.
They did say that they searched the Louvre for like 3+ hours trying to find this exact window for them to do this shot.
I love the dedication.
I thank them for their service.
Worth it.
Like,
so worth it.
You. So worth it, because like just that moment, I have to imagine I'm not the only comics fan who had this reaction. Like, this is a scene that is ingrained in my mind from the comics.
100%.
And seeing that exact recreation of the shot, like down to the little like sculptures behind them, I was like, oh my God.
Mm-hmm.
And I got so excited. I think I actually spilled a little bit of popcorn.
From the popcorn shirt or like actual popcorn? Put it back.
Jeremy, I'm not well enough for this.
Sorry, keep going.
Elle kind of like opens up and says that she thought it would be this awful trip, but it's turned out to be her favorite holiday yet. And that she's feeling like really inspired, and that it's really beautiful, and she wants to draw. And Tao tells her to draw because he loves watching her draw. And I cry.
It's so cute.
So she takes out her sketchbook, and I don't know what this particular structure is called. So I called it the Louvre glass pyramid thing.
I just called it the pyramid. So
yeah. And she like starts like drawing that because that's the view out of this window. And Tao says the most Tao thing that you could ever fucking say. He says, the building is just so cinematic. They should make more movies in the Louvre. I can only think of the Da Vinci Code, and you would have to literally tie me to a chair if you wanted me to watch that monstrosity again. And of course, Tao hates the Da Vinci Code.
Yeah, that absolutely tracks. I also love though, when he says the Louvre, it's so cinematic here, or however he words it, she instantly like she stops what she's doing for a second to smirk because she's like, there he is. And he starts to rant. And this is the Tao that she loves. This is the Tao she wanted to go on a date with.
Yeah.
This is the Tao that she wants to be in a relationship. Not when you're trying to be who you think she wants you to be. No, just be yourself. And look, it'll get you smooches.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because she cuts him off. And this whole thing, and it took me until now, reading the comics multiple times, watching this multiple times, it took me until this watch to realize this parallels the Nick and Charlie's kisses at the beginning of Secret really well. Because Elle cuts him off by kissing him. She freaks out, apologizes, right? So that's like what happens in Kiss.
Yeah.
Tao tries to stop her, calm her down because she's freaking out. Pause for a moment to acknowledge the music because I love this song. It's Fall in Love with a Girl by Cave Town featuring Orla Gartland.
Our girl, Orla Gartland.
So Fall in Love with a Girl comes in. The lyrics are perfect. I'm going to talk about it in the music episode. I very specifically was like, calm down. We're going to have a whole episode just about the music. And Tao grabs her face and kisses her the same way that Nick does to shut Charlie up.
Mm-hmm.
And I have feelings.
I did not catch this parallel, so good job.
Thank you. And it's perfect. And it makes me so happy. And like, it's also like, fucking finally, you know? Because we've seen this weird version of Tao trying to be what he thinks Elle wants. And it's like, dude, she just wants you to be you.
Mm-hmm.
And then also they cut to the wide shot and she does the Princess Diaries foot pop.
I know!
And I die!
Yeah, my note just says in all caps, giant butterflies, foot pop. So cute.
Jeremy, would you like to talk about the teachers now?
I would love to talk about the teachers. Mm-hmm. So we get this adorable scene between Mr. Farouk and Mr. Ajay. And what is this painted? I didn't even pay attention to the painted.
I didn't either. I was like, maybe I'll look it up. But who has time or energy to research things?
Same.
But Mr. Ajay is like pointing out this painted and is comparing it to Mr. Farouk. He's like, the resemblance is uncanny. And then he just asks Mr. Farouk to pose. Mr. Farouk's like, I don't pose. But he does it anyway because he's a good little boy. And it's so fucking cute.
I do have an additional note at the end of this conversation. And Ashley, I think you know what's about to happen. And I'm not sorry, but he was sunshine. I was midnight rain.
That's their theme song. It's got to be their theme song.
It is.
Yeah. So then Isaac and Imogen run up and tell them that Charlie has fainted.
Well, no, before that happens, Farouk does in fact comply and stands in front of the painting and does the pose and the facial expression. And I decide I need a whole spin-off of these two.
Yeah, they share a little giggle. It's very cute.
It's so cute.
So then we cut to Charlie waking up. And he's like, what happened? And Nick says, you just passed out. And Darcy says, on to your boyfriend there, so it's all good. And that's when Charlie finally sits up and he starts looking around and Nick checks in and he says he's just a little bit embarrassed. And this is the part that I feel like is so needed in the middle of this very heavy scene because I cannot help but fucking cackle every single time that Isaac comes barreling up. And Imogen is right behind him and she stops and she's out of breath. She's like, ooh, ooh, ooh. And Isaac is just like, I did it! I found the teachers! It's so perfect and in panicky and just the right way. And it's just it's not funny, but it is so funny.
I would like to note that Nick requested Mr. Farouk. And instead of Mr. Farouk, he gets Mr. Ajay with a fucking Target first aid kit that has nothing of use because that thing has band-aids and gloves and shitty plastic tweezers and an instant cold pack and a single dose of Tylenol. I mean, maybe some Neosporin.
It could have been helpful if he had hit his head and perhaps had a cut.
Oh, no, that is entirely valid. And I do also want to, like, I definitely understand Ajay. Like, it makes sense that he's the first one there because he has the relationship with Charlie and he's invested and he cares about Charlie. So he is going to hear Charlie fainted and book it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, later on, Farouk has the practical solution.
Yeah, so we cut to them at the table and Mr. Ajay is like asking if he's sure that he feels okay, and Charlie admits that he's not eaten enough today. He tells Charlie something that Charlie does not fucking listen to, and neither does Nick. That if he needs to sit down or if he wants to go rest in the coach, he can.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it kills me during this scene while all this is going on. We see Nick and he's got his hands like up by his mouth and he's chewing on like not his fingernails, but like chewing on his actual finger, like nervously biting on his hand. And that kills me.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mr. Farouk walks up with a sandwich and looks like he's refilled Charlie's water, maybe.
Also, the fucking fist pounds that he does.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why I feel like that is such a wholesome moment. But
Yeah.
I got all the feels seeing that.
It is the contrast between Mr. Ajay telling him, like, all right, we're going to let you chill out for a bit. And Farouk really not knowing what to do. So he's just like, offers a fist bump of like, I got you.
And he has the sweetest little smile too. Like,
it's very gentle, and it's very much that I don't know you very well, but I'm here for you if you need me.
Yeah. And he's not a teacher that has a lot of soft spots for a lot of students. So it's also showing us that he does, like, he
can soften.
Yeah, he can soften. He does have, room for that. But also when he shows up with the sandwich, Mr. Ajay looks at him like he's the one that just fainted and he has caught him and brought him a sandwich. He's like, my hero, you've returned with a sandwich for the boy.
I told you, Nathan has it bad.
Yeah, he does.
I don't want to talk about this part.
I know.
Yeah.
Nick decides he's going to bring it up. And he's like, Charlie, I've noticed that you don't really eat a lot generally, or I don't really, I feel like it's gotten worse lately. And we get this shot of Charlie like pinching his arm under his sweater and like scratching at it.
All right. Not to bring up Grey's Anatomy.
Oh boy.
Because there is a character who has OCD on the show who has a very similar compulsion where she pulls on her fingers. And I was thinking about it a lot. And Jeremy, this is a spoiler from the comics. Not Jeremy, you're Jeremy.
I am.
Charlie gets diagnosed with anorexia and OCD, which is not really a surprise to anyone who knows anything about either of those two conditions. And this like pinching that he's doing at like the inside of his elbow, like I feel like he does things like that a lot, and it's very clearly like a part of his compulsions. And just because like this morning I was watching an episode of Grey's where the character Bailey was doing the same thing with her fingers, it just kind of like clicked in my brain.
I also think it's a hint at the self-harm.
Oh, definitely. They kind of go hand in hand.
Oh yeah, I was going to think about that.
So Nick says, I feel like you eat less than you used to. And Charlie like he's panicking a little bit, and he takes a second and then he just starts apologizing. Mm-hmm. And Nick is so quick to shut that down, and he like grabs his hand and he's like, hey, no, like you have nothing to be sorry about. I just want to understand. And again, Joe Locke's nonverbal acting like is so good. It's so good. And he says, I know that I don't eat like normal people. Some days I'm fine. Other days I feel like I need to control it. I used to do it a lot last year when everything at school was really bad. Sometimes it feels like the only thing I can control in my life. And then he starts like he gets all of that out, and then he starts to come back into the anxiety. He's like, that makes zero sense. Like, just forget that I said anything. And again, Nick shuts it down. He's like, no, it does make sense. And then he's like, well, okay, maybe I don't fully get it, but I do want to know when you're feeling like this, or if you're having a bad day, or if there's anything I can do to make things less stressful, cheering you up. I'm your boyfriend, Charlie, and I really care about you. He almost, once again, almost. And, but
he does kind of slip in a moment.
Yes. But he knows this is not the right moment.
Yeah.
And so he pulls back and says, I really care about you. And he gets out the croissant.
That whole moment when he's talking and he's saying, like, I'm your boyfriend and I care about you and I, like, if I can do anything to help, it hurts so much because I know his heart is in the right place. But he is also a literal child.
Yeah.
Like, he can't fix it. He can't, like, yes, he can help and he can support Charlie, but there's only so much that he can do. And I'm like, you're trying to, like, fix it all. And you're 16 years old.
Don't worry, Sarah's gonna
Oh, I know. And, like, the whole time, every time I think it, I think back to the conversation that Nick and Sarah have in the comics. But, like, it hurt. And I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah, it hurts.
Yes. But yes, then we do have Charlie pretending that the croissant is still edible when it's not.
It is not.
But Nick says, you are not rejecting the croissant that I lovingly carried.
Oh, that's
for
not
you
the
all
same
day.
slip that I thought you were talking about.
Oh, there's one later.
It's adorable. Is this the part where I talk about why this episode gave me all the feels and part of the reason why I asked to be on this episode?
Yes.
So, something that I don't really talk about a lot, and because this was like, my teenage self, and, all my friends who I made in my 20s and 30s, I don't really know this part about me, but when I was like 15, 16, I did have disordered eating, where I essentially starved myself. And I used to try to hide behind the aspect like, oh, I just need to be thin because I want to, like, be quote unquote beautiful. That's the mentality that I had. But then in my 20s, 30s, it's like really interesting because like I am like one of the most fat positive people in the world. I identify as fat and, I just don't have any shame behind that whatsoever. So I've just always found that interesting because I'm like, oh, I guess that was just like a little phase in my teenage life. Like, okay, whatever, like moving on. It's never, I didn't start going into therapy until my 20s. And this is just something I never talked about really. But then seeing this particular episode where Charlie was actually put into words that he was doing this because he wanted to feel some sense of control, I started to like look back on those times when I had disordered eating, like those times when I was really starving myself. Like this was right after I came out, and a lot of my friends and a lot of my family like didn't take it very well. And then another major incident was when I got my heart broken by a boy. And it was like, this is my first teenage love at that point. At that moment in my life, I didn't think, anybody would ever love me because, when you're a teen, that's just the mentality that you think. So I feel like seeing Charlie put that into words where it's like, you have to, like Charlie feels like he has this disordered eating because this is how he feels some sort of control. It made me feel very seen because I realized, like, wait, this thing that I compartmentalized when I was a teen, like, was this what was actually happening? It just made me bring up a lot of questions that when I can afford therapy again, it may be something I might try to bring up and say, like, hey, maybe this is something I should talk about.
Yeah. Isn't it wild how something as small as this one episode of television can, like, fucking rock your world?
Right, exactly. A teen show nonetheless. Like 32-year-old me is like bawling my eyes out and feeling seen by these young teens here.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of the stories that we're hearing from people is like, I'm 35, 40, whatever. Like, and this show made me realize insert various things in self-discoveries. And it's like, and I keep telling people who are like, oh, but that's a kid's show. I'm like, no, it's not.
No, not at all.
I mean, like, it's accessible to kids, which is amazing, but it's just as important and accessible to adults. And I feel like even more so because, especially in season 2, like, we have these stories from adult perspectives in addition to the stories from the teens. And it just, like, all kind of comes together. And it's like, anyone who's queer can feel seen in some kind of way. I'm just like, I have a lot of feelings.
It's nice to feel something. It's nice to have just a piece of media that just affects you. Speaking
as the 32-year-old, it's nice to feel something. Like, that hit me. It's so nice to feel something.
No, because like I feel like I don't know about you, but just like a piece of media, like media doesn't really move me like it once did, like in this age. So to actually like, get a piece of media that deeply does affect me personally is really exciting.
Yes. So then Nick and Charlie are exploring out like in this statue courtyard step area, and Nick's dad calls.
Mm-hmm.
And Nick is like, "This is my dad. I got to take it." And Charlie's like, "Your dad? You have a dad?" Like, his face is like, "What?" Which he later says, like, "You've never mentioned your dad before." And, but like in the moment, it's just so funny to me.
And
So
it's
good.
like, oh, buddy, do you have a revelation coming?
Yeah.
If you were surprised by dad, just you wait.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because then, when Nick answers the phone, not only is he talking to his dad, he's talking to his dad in French. And Charlie is into it.
He is losing his shit.
He cannot even breathe without giggling. Like, and I mentioned this in the last episode when they had the like, I didn't mean do it, like conversation. Joe Locke plays this like flustered, like excited embarrassment, like so well. I love this entire scene.
I couldn't figure out a way to describe it except to say that Charlie has the same face as when Nick first called him Char in the movie theater.
Yeah, yes.
My heart.
They hang up and Nick is like talking like, "Oh, he said, blah, blah, blah." And he just stops mid-sentence because Charlie's just like staring at him like and giggling and like looking away and like blushing. And he's like, "What?" And Charlie's like, "You speak French like fluently." And then I was like, okay, we're this far into the Paris trip and he still hasn't heard him speak French at all. Which is like a feat, I think, to be in France for several days and not hear him speak French. But maybe he did only hear like phrases be said,
Yeah.
But Nick is like, sort of. My dad is French and basically only speaks to me in French. So anyway, he lives in Paris and I've been trying to, and again, he gets distracted because Charlie is having a full-on meltdown.
Yeah. Meltdown is not the word I would use, but like...
I feel like his brain is melting in a good way.
Oh, yes, definitely. Meltdown has negative connotations.
Yeah, you're right.
Right? No, his brain is melting. Error 404, Charlie not found.
Yeah, yes.
And Nick is like, do you like the fact that I speak French? And I just pause and I'm like, Nick, it is universally known that the romance languages are extremely hot. And on the hierarchy of romance languages, it's French, Italian, Spanish, Portuguese. Like, French is the hottest language you can speak.
100%. And that is like a known fact.
Yeah.
This is the slip I was talking about when he's like, taking the piss out of him and he's like, "Charlie, mon amour." I love that he puts on this like sultry face to do it too.
Uh-huh.
I love Charlie just calling Nick out saying, "Oh my God, you're so cringe." But like, he's liking it.
Yes. And that's exactly what Nick says, too. He's like, "You don't look like you're cringing. You look like you're blushing quite a lot, actually."
Yeah.
So cute.
And then we get the security guard. Do you know who this man is?
No.
This is actually a cameo by A. Lynn, who has directed every episode of Heartstopper to date.
Oh.
So
very cool.
And so that's A-Ross is the security guard. And my note is that this guy, he does not want any hanky-panky or tomfoolery in the Louvre. I had to do it.
It's so funny. And Charlie just says, "Run." And my question here is, I have two questions. One, why would you run towards the security guard?
That was my question as well.
Why would you run you literally go up the steps and towards him? Like, that's the opposite of the direction you should be running. And two, should Charlie be running? No, he should be resting. Why are we running? He just passed out.
And it's still hot, and they are ostensibly in like an outdoor open air courtyard.
Running upstairs, not even just running. They're going upstairs. I'm like, don't.
But we have to call back to kiss, Ashley. Don't you understand?
Yes, I do understand. I'm just saying. So they run up to the top and they're like catching their breath. And Nick says that his dad wants to meet up today. And this is when Charlie's like, you've never mentioned your dad before. He says, I mean, he's not really a part of my life anymore since he lives here and he's not the most reliable, but he's still my dad. And then he waits for a second and he says, I had this idea that I might introduce you to him. And Charlie's like, yeah? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, this is so cute.
Yeah.
But it's hard to get in touch with him and he never answers his texts. And then Charlie says, how about we promise to tell each other when we have stuff going on?
Which is good. But I think you also should both talk to an adult.
Yes.
Like Sarah.
Yeah, both of you can talk to her.
We know Jane's no help.
Yeah, and I mean, Julio is nice and all, but he's complacent.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The next scene is the scene that causes me to absolutely snotty cry. Like snot.
This
cry. No, after the hug.
Oh, but can we talk about the hug? Because, right, they, like, make this agreement that they're going to tell each other when they've got stuff going on. And they have this huge hug. Like, it's such a big hug, and there's so many feelings contained that they have to cut to a wide shot to, like, contain and, like, hold space for everything that is being felt by these characters and by us in this moment. But, like, at the same time as there's a lot of big feelings happening, it's so gentle and so loving and so tender. And that's when I start to cry.
Yeah. And he says, well, when exactly were you going to meet him and how? And that's when he says, he like kind of looks guilty, like I said I was going to meet him in a cafe in 20 minutes. And Charlie's like, let's fucking go. And they run again. No, Charlie.
Mm-hmm.
And then this song starts playing, and this is when I start crying. This song comes on, and I have to just say that this is a bold statement, but this is my favorite song from the season 2 soundtrack.
That is a bold statement.
I think it is. And Paradise is my number 2. They're like very close to each other. And I'm also saying this is my favorite season 2 song for personal listening. Do I think it is phenomenal? I'm about to wax poetic about the use of it, but I just want to be very clear that I'm saying this is a song that I bump all the fucking time. I love this song so much.
That's fair. I mean, mine is Fall in Love with the Girl from this season. So
okay, and they're both
in Paradise. Yeah.
Also, before we get into this scene, there is footage of them that they made them run back, and there's them like running back and forth in the platform so that they can be like out of breath when they get down there for them to film this scene, because they didn't film obviously the steps and everything chronologically. Yeah. So they're just down there, and there's just pictures of like Joe and Kit just running back and forth like in a 5-foot radius, just like fucking getting like pumped up and ready to film this. And also they had them going.
That's method action right there.
They also had them going on the trains, because they obviously film like the one shot of them going away, but they had to do all the takes beforehand of them like running in and doing everything. So they have them going in and out of these trains while they're going.
Having lived in New York City for 5 years and taking the subway kind of regularly, I hate that. It's just like, what the fuck is happening?
Please, that take that I was in.
I feel like I would be kind of pissed off if I found out, wait, I was an extra in this scene. Like, where are my fucking residuals?
That's fair.
I don't know why, but I started to get mad as soon as you said, I'm like, really? They were there?
Not that there's much that they're getting right now from residuals.
Yeah, there probably wouldn't get, like, honestly, it'd probably be like a penny, but I'm like, come on, it'd be a penny more than what I have now.
Yeah. And it could be that they may be like, I have not looked at the like behind the scene footage and compared it to the show footage. They could have used like extras for the face shots, you know, on the train. But just for them filming the actual action of it is when I was seeing the people behind the scenes like seeing them running in and off the train.
So I would still be like, my arm is in that shot.
That is my left pinky. I'm going to need a penny for episode.
Give me my coins, damn it.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Yeah, so they run up and they're waiting, and the grip, these two have had a day. And so, like, they're definitely each other's anchor right now. And we already know that Nick doesn't have, like, a good relationship with his dad.
Like, not only does Nick need it, but he is doing it so that because Charlie needs it too.
Yeah, 100%. And so this is, like, my big point is that right here when the train pulls up and we get this shot of Nick looking at Charlie and Charlie looking back at him. And the song says, I don't know who I am without you. And this was after, this is a spoiler, Jeremy. I'm sorry. But this was after that comic panel had come out when he is at university with Tara and Darcy, and he says he doesn't know who he is without Charlie. And I instantly just said, like, oh, Nick. And I just started sobbing. I'm sorry, Alyssa. Stop flipping me off. I can't help my action.
I briefly took my headphones off during this. I'm like, maybe I don't want to hear this.
It's so beautifully done, and it so perfectly foreshadows that was like, Alice was actively drawing this and putting it out on Patreon, like, when this aired. This would be a question that I would ask about this process, because that is something that happens so much further later in the comics that they are laying these seeds for in season 2 that it's just mind blowing, and it is heartbreaking.
For listeners at home, I feel like everybody should know that, like, I took my headphones off when Ashley was speaking, so I don't know what she said, but Alyssa was holding up the finger the entire time to Ashley.
Also literally crying.
And she's crying.
I'm so sorry. I immediately tweeted about this when this comic panel went live, like on the actual public comic, because I was waiting for it. It was behind the paywall. I couldn't talk about it. And so as soon as the day that chapter got published, I was like, did anybody else fucking see this in the show? Because I cried so hard.
Fuck you.
It makes me so upset.
I think I speak for everyone when I say fuck you, Ashley.
I'm so sorry.
I am so not okay.
I can't wait to read the comics and then come back to this episode and be like, that's what Ashley was talking about.
Yeah.
I'm literally crying.
That is the end of the episode. They get on the train and it takes off. And this song, I also did not say the name of the song. It's called Never Be the Same. And it is by Gabrielle Aplin, I think is how you say the last name. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's a very good song. I love the way that they've used it. And I love the way that she hits that high note, like as the train takes off. It's beautifully done.
So does anyone have any quotes from this episode?
Pretty much every time Mr. Farouk yelled. I'd say my absolute favorite quote is when Darcy says, wait, that's the Mona Lisa? That's it? It's rubbish.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
So good. I have two.
I also have two.
Yeah, I have my one that makes me giggle, and then I have the one that makes me cry. The one that makes me giggle is, I don't give a rat's ass, rude boy, grow up.
Yes.
I cackled the first time I saw that, and every time I saw it after.
As well.
But
I need you to know, Ashley, I didn't pick that because I knew you would.
I love it. I love it so much. And then this is maybe my favorite quote from the whole season, when he says, you don't have to understand your feelings completely to know that you like something. You don't have to always have everything figured out. You can just feel, because that's an important lesson that I think a lot of us need to learn.
That's valid. I, on the other hand, do not want to feel. So both of mine are things that are kind of silly / make me happy. So first off, I have Tao saying, oh my God, I cannot believe it. The actual, we will be having words.
Yes.
And then I also have Nick's Mon Amour.
Yeah.
Because not only does it make Charlie feel some kind of way, but it makes me feel some kind of way. Because when I say French is the hottest romance language, that's my personal bias. You know, Nick's trying to make Charlie feel some type of way.
He's going for swoon, and swoon he accomplishes.
Swoon he accomplishes. So, and then also just, you know, I like French. I like the way that French sounds.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Same. Jeremy, where did you fall on the scale?
I mean, honestly, just for the confession scene for between Charlie and Nick alone, it's 5 out of 5.
Nice.
For me, for sure.
Fair.
5 out of 5 fist pounds of Mr. Farouk.
Yeah.
I am at a 4.
Okay.
Oh.
There's just a couple things that bring it down a step for me. And I will say, like, the highs have me at, like, a 10.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, it's the bend of it all. It just really
brings it down.
So, yeah, I'm at a solid 4.
Totally fair.
That's fair.
Because the Nick and Charlie stuff and the Tao stuff, but everything else.
I give it a 5 out of 5. And here's why. Because we get Tao kiss.
And my reason for this is...
Yes, and my reason for this is... In this essay, I will. We get Tao kiss. And I've been waiting for that since this show started. And the way that he ran after her and then kissed her again, and then they get the giant butterflies and the foot pop. I just love that. We get the, so what if I did? You jealous? And that gives me code blue. And then we get the extremely sultry and longing looks from Mr. Ajayi to Mr. Farouk that make me giggle and kick my feet. And then we also get the really tender, like the almost I love you moment after he faints. And we get the French and everything. And so those are my reasons for being 5 out of 5.
Beautiful.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have any last thoughts, feelings, questions, comments?
No, I just really, really love this episode. I feel like it really speaks to the power that this show has on all generations, not just young teeny boppers. And I just really appreciate it. I appreciate that, like, you know, queer people of all age demographics have this show.
Yeah. And thank you for opening up and, like, sharing your story.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Thank you so much. Appreciate the outlet. And next stop, therapy to talk about this more in depth.
You know, the traditional order of millennials talking about their problems, first on a podcast, then in therapy.
Absolutely.
All right. So before we wrap up, do you want to tell us where we can find you and your podcast all over the internet?
Yes, well, I am Jeremy Rodriguez. You can follow me on Twitter, I guess. I'm still there. At Rodriguez Jeremy. And that's also my username on Blue Sky. We'll see if that lasts and becomes a thing. Instagram is the same, Rodriguez Jeremy, but it has an underscore at the end of it. Same thing with Threads. And you can find my podcast, which I co-host with Caitlin Ilinich. It's Always and Forever, a One Tree Hill podcast. It's available on all platforms. And you can find us on all social media platforms at Always OTH Pod. That's Always OTHPOD.
And as a former Rodriguez, I just want to clarify, that's Rodriguez with a G and a Z, right?
Yes, it is. Thank you so much.
Do you also get the QUES?
I got the Q, I got the S at the end, yes.
So, you know, looking out for you.
Thank you so much, appreciate it. So yes, Rodriguez with a G and a Z, Jeremy is spelled Jeremy.
All right, well, I suppose that just wraps us up for today. And of course, this is a bi-weekly podcast by two bisexuals. And we will be back in 2 weeks with a special bonus episode with a really cool guest.
If you want to follow us online, we are at Why Are We Cast on all platforms. And if you like this, please consider rating and reviewing us as it helps others find us.
And until next time, bye.
Bye.
Bye.